There are as many ways to meditate as you want to find, try, or even buy. But I'm going to explain the simplest form of can't mess it up, can't do it wrong, no way, no how, no making a mistake meditating that I can. Learn this first, or better yet, learn to give yourself permission to meditate this way before the bullshit machine tries to get you to go out and make it difficult. The bullshit machine wants to use Nutrisystem, the diet, instead of just eating healthy. That's why Nutrisystem exists, so there's a chance it's going to want you to run out and buy all the meditation music and gear that shows up in your Facebook feed as soon as you Google how to meditate. That's what happened to me. So, I'm here to help you not go through that and keep your power in your meditation instead of giving it to a $150 crystal and a copper pyramid I built. Did I say I? Oops. It's easy to make meditation hard in our minds because the bullshit machine sees us connecting with the present moment as its own death, which is sort of true. The bullshit machine thinks it's protecting us from danger, and it can. But what's it doing when there is no danger? It's actually blocking us from feeling the feelings that we were afraid to feel from various situations that happened in the past, and most likely when we were kids. It's protecting its right to be addicted to these emotions and carries them around like some delusional badge of honor, threatening to cause a scene if someone triggers us into making us feel those feelings. It shows up as things like a panic attack or an outburst, and then blames the trigger as the cause of our public tantrums and inner depressions. What makes meditation seemingly difficult is the question, who would want to sit alone in a room with nobody to blame for these thoughts and feelings I have, when I could be out and about, or on social media, trying to change how the world thinks and acts so I don't feel these feelings anymore? With nobody to blame, the bullshit machine says, this is stupid. The minute you sit down to meditate, because now its job to protect you is meaningless, because you took away the triggers. It knows that it's only a matter of time before you figure out that those thoughts and feelings are showing up inside of you whether you're triggered or not. So where are these thoughts and emotions coming from, if not from the triggers? It's the bullshit machine creating its own reality, based on who it thinks we are, and what it's trying to protect us from that will make us not be who it thinks we are. You might have to meditate on this. Anxiety feels so bad because the sensations we're feeling aren't the emotions we think we're feeling. Instead, it's more like an argument with reality. More often than not, we're feeling the bullshit machine's resistance to feeling our emotions, and not the emotions themselves. The resistance generally comes in the form of having something to blame, or figuring out who and what to blame. But since there's nothing to blame in meditation, the bullshit machine gets exposed. We begin to see that it's under the delusion that we're supposed to be feeling the way it thinks we should feel, instead of what's actually happening in the moment. When we start to realize what's going on, we could start seeing our true selves underneath all those contradicting sensations. Think of the sensations of anxiety as one of your many inner children asking to finally be seen, heard, and felt after all these years, so it can finally be at peace. But the bullshit machine, like a dysfunctional Terminator, has vowed to never let you feel that feeling again, so it spends an enormous amount of energy protecting you from feeling that emotion by resisting it to its best ability to resist. It will use any excuse to get us to do something that has nothing to do with the present moment, so we can avoid feeling that sensation. What if, and I'm just saying here, what if you gave yourself permission to feel that feeling that showed up in the moment, because it's really there, and not follow the belief the bullshit machine gave you that you should never have to feel that feeling ever again? Without that belief, we wouldn't have to figure out where our sensations were coming from because we would just feel them. There would be no shame in feeling our emotions because it would be normal to feel sensations in our bodies, in which the byproduct would be a life of authenticity. The sensations would have far less strength, and there would be no need to turn to an addiction to distract ourselves from the inner child that's crying out. It's our inner child, our children, that the bullshit machine is trying to pawn off on other people in our relationships, our addictions, and looking for something to blame in our environment for all that's wrong in our lives. And all we have to do is to love that inner child. So how do I use all this to meditate? I call what I'm about to describe to you perfectly the sit and feel, because that's all there is to it. Of course, I'll probably use another couple thousand words to explain it, but just come back to the previous sentence if the bullshit machine tries to make it too complicated. I made it bold and in italics. Hopefully you noticed, but it's okay if you didn't. Just like in meditation, you can't do anything wrong and there's nothing to do right. The first thing to do is to show up. Even though this may seem to be obvious as a first step, let's remember all the times we wanted to start something and it never left the concept phase. Don't worry, that was the bullshit machine at work. So don't beat yourself up for not going to the gym or learning how to crochet. Each and every moment in our lives is a brand new beginning if we want it to be. So let's start from there. I call it the sit and feel, because that's all you're doing while you're there, nothing else. You're free to do the lay down and feel if you want, but it's easier to fall asleep shortly after you begin. I actually use the lay down and feel while I'm falling asleep, which makes it much easier to do so, and without all the worry and anxiety that comes along with trying to fall asleep. The more you read, the more you'll get it. By nothing else, I mean not giving your infinite power away to music, mantras, guided meditations, beads, crystals, copper pyramids, dream catchers, bowing, worshipping the moon, or anything else outside of yourself. Mantras, guided meditations, and music are a distraction from the thoughts in your head, and distracting yourself is not why this meditation is effective. And yes, all the other stuff and more can be in the room if you want, but understand that you're there for you, and that all of your power resides within. Can you use mantras, guided meditations, and/or music in any meditation? Yes, of course, and they all work to help ease the mind, and they are all powerful. There is no limit to what is out there to help us focus and redirect our thoughts, but this is silence and being, sitting and feeling, and that is all. The point in this meditation is to not give yourself more obstacles to overcome. For the past 70+ days, I've been waking up, making pee-pee, and then going downstairs into the basement, where I sit in a chair for 3 consecutive hours to begin each day. I wear an eye mask to keep things dark and use a blanket in case I get chilly. For 3 hours, I'm just a dude breathing in silence, listening to my beating heart, and feeling the sensations in my body while I let the thoughts come and go as they please. This is the practice, and it takes practice. I'm not fixing what shows up in my body, I'm just feeling it. I'm not making any of the thoughts right or wrong, I'm just letting them do their thing. I'm being the space for all of this to happen, just like the space you're in isn't judging anything you're doing right now. There are plenty of times during meditation where I'll take hold of a thought, or it takes hold of me, but as soon as I realize that I'm in a story and going down a rabbit hole, I thank it for being there, remind myself that I am here, then I choose to let it go. Why would I thank a thought or a story I didn't willingly bring into my space for being there? So I can choose to let it go. We don't choose for most of our thoughts to be there when they show up, but since it's already there, I can thank it for being there and be in control. When I thank it for being there, then I own it, and am no longer a victim to it. If I'm not a victim of my own thoughts, then I can choose what I want to do with them. The sensations in our bodies are a reaction to what's going on in the mind, and vice versa. So I let the thought be and keep my awareness in my body, which is telling a different story than the bullshit machine wants me to believe. The sensations are the inner children speaking out and wanting to be seen. The thoughts are trying to distract us from what we're feeling in the moment. At least that's my take on it in meditation. Since our thoughts are only as real as we make them, and our beliefs aren't true, then the reality of the present moment says there's nothing to fix and nothing to figure out. This allows me to focus on the sensations that are happening in my body which are really there. Reminding myself that I am here brings actual truth into the space because it's really the only thing that's true. The rest is in my head. Being present to the only truth in the moment makes it much easier to observe thoughts as just thoughts, and not identify with what they're telling me. For instance, if a thought shows up and says that I should feel guilty for something that happened 10 years ago, the first thing the bullshit machine wants to do is try and fix it by disagreeing with the thought it just came up with, which starts an argument in my head and the fun begins. But only if I let it by identifying with it. What if the feeling of guilt was an inner child showing up to be finally seen, and the thought, and following disagreement that turns into an argument, is the distraction the bullshit machine uses to block me from feeling the actual feeling of guilt? This is what creates the anxiety that ends up being medicated, or further distracted with some other outside addiction. It's truly an argument with reality. Instead of identifying with the thought the bullshit machine is telling me to feel guilty about, I feel what feels like guilt in my body and let the thoughts do what they want. That feeling of guilt is part of my program, and the bullshit machine is trying to make up excuses for it to be there. Since I'm in meditation, and there is nothing currently in my environment to blame the feeling on, the bullshit machine says, "Hey, how about this thing from 10 years ago?" to try to get me to bite. If that doesn't work, it will make up story after story about why that feeling is there. But as long as I don't identify with the stories it's making up, I can be the space for the inner child that is asking to be validated by me through the sensations in my body. We store the emotions that we don't know what to do with when we're kids, and they show up as sensations that we have learned to ignore, medicate, and even hate as adults. It's easy to hate the emotional pain in our body, ignore it, or distract ourselves from it with an addiction, but let's put that into perspective. Hating the sensations in my body would be like hating my 5-year-old self that feels guilty, but he doesn't know why. Imagine it was your actual child, or any child close to you if you don't have kids, that came up to you and said, "I'm sad because I feel guilty and I don't know why." And you said, "Go away, I hate you. I'm going to smoke this pack of cigarettes and go to the bar and get drunk." Ouch. But that's what we've learned to do in a million different ways. The longer we do it that way, the more lost we feel about ourselves, the more we seek solutions, and the stronger the sensations get, which can turn into more than just emotional problems. Hello, Doc. These sensations and stored emotions are trying to leave when they show up, so it makes sense to let them go in meditation before we trample our environment with garbage like, "Let me see your manager right now." Same thing goes for the people currently screaming at others, "Shut the fuck up and put your fucking mask on." Those feelings come from inside of the screamer, but that's not who any of us are, no matter how many people might agree with our complaint, or who programmed us to complain like that. If you didn't know what I meant when I said that anxiety is the universe removing what you're not, now you do. The sensations that are causing people to go nuts on each other can be felt through in meditation, so they can leave and we don't have to carry them around using them to be pissed off at each other. The thoughts aren't just about identifying guilt from the past. The bullshit machine is smarter than that. It makes up worries about the past, present, and future using our deepest and darkest fears about abandonment, helplessness, anger, lack, inauthenticity, victimization, trauma, unworthiness, not being good enough, and general unhappiness. Our job in meditation is to show up and sit and feel our way through all of it. That's it. When a thought shows up, let it be, and love the inner child that is showing you how he or she feels. If you hate the sensations, love the 3-year-old you that is experiencing the sensations you hate in your body right now. Don't argue with reality. The sensations are there, so don't follow the bullshit machine's excuses as to why they're there, or why they don't need to be. When they show up, that's how you know that they're asking to leave. Treat them with unconditional love and understanding like you would your own children, or even how you wished your parents were to you. It's always your chance to be the parent for your inner children, the way you wanted to be parented when you were a kid. You can finally do it right. Imagine what that would do for the relationship between you and your own children if you were to understand and love the inner child that's in so much pain inside of you. How much understanding does that bring to any relationship? If you feel like crying, cry. If you feel like laughing, laugh. Don't argue with reality and know the thoughts don't matter. If it feels like anger, let it feel like anger. Let sadness feel like sadness. Let abandonment feel like abandonment. Let exhausted feel like exhausted. Let trauma feel like trauma. Let guilt feel like guilt. And love yourself and the inner child showing it to you through all of it. If you want to get technical about my process, it's wireless, deviceless, absolutely free, and looks like this. I sit down and take a few deep breaths, filling my lungs and into my belly button so I can center myself and become conscious of my breathing. Feeling centered, the body takes over and I allow nature to do its thing. If I need to reset my breath during meditation, I reset with a few more deep breaths. I then put my awareness in my heart and say thank you until I stop saying thank you. Sometimes I say it 5 or 10 times, and sometimes I say it for a few minutes. It's just a way for me to be in gratitude. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I keep the home base of my awareness in my heart and let it expand to the rest of my body, so I can bring awareness to the sensations that are the inner children asking to be seen, and in some cases, screaming. The more I'm in my body, the less I'm in my head, and the less I'm in my head, the more the inner children are validated. If I go off into a story, awesome. As soon as I realize I'm there, I thank it, love it, realize that I am here, and simply bring my awareness back to home base in my heart and let the story be. When a thought comes up that doesn't make it all the way to a story, and even if it does, I thank it, love it, let it be, and it eventually passes because I am here and not there. It's like farting and sitting through it without moving or enduring it. Sure, it might be nasty for a little bit, but eventually it goes away. It's not going to kill you no matter how uncomfortable it gets, just like your thoughts. Whatever shows up, be okay with it and let it pass. We're not creating or overcoming obstacles. We're sitting there breathing. That's really all I do in meditation. The universe requires zero effort or understanding to receive the moment that we're in. There are no monk skills you need, no superhero abilities, and no bullshit besides the bullshit in your head. Whatever form of meditation you see, don't be afraid to try it because all of it works at the level it works. We deserve to experience the vast array of all the things that can work for us. Just remember that the discomfort you may feel in meditation is a major part of your growth, and if you're trying to find ways to avoid any discomfort, you will only grow to your level of your comfort. There's no right or wrong way to do anything, but there are always consequences to everything we do. A consequence of buying a lottery ticket can be winning the lottery, or it can be contributing a couple dollars to the jackpot. There's nothing wrong with either thing, but over time, what could you have done with all that money you spent each week? Sit and feel. That's how to meditate. All right.